Abraham took his idea with him as he migrated to Palestine. And now, ironically, he's viewed as the founding father by Jews, Christians and Muslims alike. For Abraham was the first man to make a covenant with God. It was perhaps Iraq's greatest legacy to the world. In the 7th century AD, Arab armies bearing the new faith of Islam swept into Mesopotamia, here at the cliff which gave the land its name, Al-Iraq. The coming of Islam to the land of Abraham was in a sense a homecoming, culmination of a long trend in the spiritual life of the Near East. Babylonians, Assyrians, Greeks and Persians had all ruled this intractable brown land in long cycles of growth and decay. And gradually, through the triumphs and disasters, the people had come to view God with an attitude of unquestioning submission. And so the way was paved for the coming of Islam to the cliff which gave the land its name, Al-Iraq. After the Arab conquest in the south of Iraq, Old Sumer, Islam took on a distinctive local form which remained true to its ancient past, Shi'ism. In the sacred city of Karbala, the Shiites carried the ancient Sumerian tradition of lamentation close to their hearts, as no other faith has done. And so it had been for thousands of years before Islam. Even the physical appearance of the great mosque of Imam Hussein at Karbala recalls the buildings of Old Sumer, with its mosaics and the same blue tiles which had adorned the shrines of Uruk. A true temple, as the Sumerians would have said, shining like a rainbow in the bright sun. Shi'ism remains today the religion of the farmers and peasants of southern Iraq, Old Sumer, ruled since the Arab conquest by Sunni Muslim masters in Baghdad. In 1991, at the end of the Gulf War, Karbala was devastated as the Shiites rose again against their overlords. Once more, the sacred shrine of Sumer was sacked and desecrated. And as so often before, the people of the south were left to lament. With such a tragic and turbulent history, it's amazing that so many different sects have managed to survive and flourish here. This is a Mandean wedding. The Mandeans are an astonishing survival of ancient Mesopotamian religious traditions. You could say they're the last of the Babylonians, but they also put us in touch with the baptismal customs out of which Christianity arose. For like Jesus, they call themselves followers of John the Baptist. Their wedding ceremonies are accompanied by full immersion in the Tigris, which in commemoration they still call the Jordan. This is perhaps as near as we can get today to the culture in which Jesus lived. The Mandeans are a reminder of how pluralism and tolerance are essential qualities of civilization. A reminder, too, of how ordinary Iraqi people, despite the catastrophes of their history, have preserved tenaciously the things they hold dear. Life is victorious, says their marriage service. And indeed, what if a man gain the whole world and lose his soul? Baghdad had been founded by the Arab conquerors of Iraq in the 8th century. It became the greatest cultural center in the world, the richest city on earth, it was said. Little survives of that time today. Successive destructions of Baghdad have seen to that. But in the center of the old city is the mosque of its patron saint, Abd al-Ghailani. This was built at a time when colleges and philanthropic institutions were created throughout Islam, before the universities of the West, before Oxford, the Sorbonne and Bologna. The civilized atmosphere of its courtyards brings to mind the great scholars of the past who learned and taught here. Scholars who translated the sacred books of the Jews and Christians, as they said, that we might better understand the decisions of God. Humane learning, wrote one of them, Abd al-Latif, leaves an aura like a ray of bright light shining on those who come after. And inside the shrine, you're reminded again of the old customs of Mesopotamian worship in the glittering Holy of Holies, whose magnificence distantly reflects something of that old pre-Islamic world. Saint, poet and mystic, al-Ghailani was founder of one of the great Sufi orders. And to pause for thought here in his shrine is to feel what a dynamic force Iraqi Islam, Shia and Sunni, has been through history. But now, at the end of the 20th century, however much the rich and complacent West may wish it otherwise, Islam is once again a great power in the world. A beacon for the dispossessed peoples of Asia and Africa, an idea for which people still live and die. From the time of Harun al-Rashid, Baghdad was one of the 3 greatest cities in the world, along with Constantinople and Xi'an in China. And like them, it was one of the great transmitters by which the cultural legacy of the ancients was passed on to the medieval and modern world. It's often forgotten in the West, but much of the Greek scientific and philosophical legacy was passed on to us by Arab scholars. And here in Baghdad in particular, the Mesopotamian legacy in astronomy and mathematics is found in medieval Arab texts, like this one. The library here at the Ghailani Mosque was founded in the 12th century, and some of its books date from that time, like this beautiful Quran. But it was one of the great tragedies in the history of Iraq that this period of high culture in Baghdad was cut short by the devastating Mongol attack of 1258, when the city was totally destroyed. And in the aftermath, one of the survivors left this poignant note. I recovered this book from the river Tigris, where it was thrown by the Mongols. Year of the Hijra, 656. That's 1258 in the Western calendar. I am poor for the mercy of God. Muhammad Abdul Qadr from Mecca. A testimony to enduring faith, not only in God, but in the power of the written word to create civilization. You ask me, wrote a contemporary, about the sack of Baghdad. It was so horrible there are no words to describe it. I wish I'd died earlier and not seen how the fools destroyed these treasures of knowledge and learning. I thought I understood the world, but this Holocaust is so strange and pointless that I'm struck dumb. The revolution of time and its decisions have defeated reason and knowledge. The destruction of Baghdad in 1258 and the wrecking of the irrigation canals was a turning point in the history of the Middle East. There's no doubt, said a Persian writer, that even if for 1,000 years to come no evil befell Iraq, it will not be possible completely to bring back the land to the state it was before. By the end of the 16th century, Iraq, the cradle of civilization, had sunk to the lowest level. The old cities of the south were dead, the land had returned to desert. 400 years of Ottoman rule left it plundered by a greedy military. The great events of the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, the discovery of the New World passed it by. Up here in the north, though, the old traditions of urban life hung on. This is Mosul. The 12th century Arab traveller Ibn Jubayr describes its lovely river frontage, with latticed windows and balconies. There could be no finer or more beautiful place than this, he said wistfully, to sit in the evening overlooking the river Tigris, talk to the people here who are cheerful, soft-spoken, kind and generous to strangers, fair in their dealings, civilized people. Out to the north of Mosul, in one of the loveliest spots in Iraq, the amazing religious life of the country has one more surprise. Our journey, which started in the Garden of Eden, has brought us finally to the domain of the Prince of Darkness, Satan himself. This is the shrine of the Yazidis. On the wall of the Yazidi temple, the place of honor goes to none other than the serpent from the Garden of Eden. Once unfairly branded as devil worshippers, the Yazidis believe that the real power in the world is Satan. It's Satan who dispenses good and evil, sickness and health, and so he needs careful and regular propitiation. Keeping a weather eye on the active presence of evil in the world, in their own way the Yazidis have come to terms with the devil's bargain of Iraqi history. After all its great achievements, Iraq reached the modern age like a society stopped in time. Right up until the 1920s, its ancient towns looked no different from those of the 3rd millennium BC, save that the ancients built bigger and better and had a higher standard of living. Oil would change all that, the second largest reserves in the world. And with independence, Iraq once again became a name on the world stage. The final step of this new order was to restore the most potent symbol of that ancient past, Babylon itself. Babylon the Great, as the Book of Revelation calls it, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. Even during the height of the war with Iran, this colossal project went ahead, rearing up palace walls with armies of guest workers from Egypt and Sudan, where Jewish captives had labored on the original. And in the rebuilt palace, every 50th brick was stamped in Arabic, restored in the era of Saddam. Just as in 600 BC, Nebuchadnezzar had advertised his own Babylonian revival for posterity. The message to the world from the late 20th century rulers of Iraq was simple. Mesopotamia, they said, had emerged once again from the darkness,